The Wonderful World of Darklords, Report 26, Rosus. The city of Rosus was a balm to my spirit after the barrenness of the grid. The water sparkled as blue as sapphires in the sunlight, and the trees were a riot of autumn colors. Graceful marble arches and intricately painted tiles filled the city itself. I knew that Rosus had a reputation as a haven for refugees from across the domain, since its natural beauty almost seemed like reason enough. There is another reason that the dispossessed and desperate flock to Rosus, however. The king, Magnifico, is a powerful wizard who has the ability to grant the wishes of the populace, and to take away the pain of unattainable desire in the meantime. While this urge is understandable in lands with little hope, it will come as no surprise that the people of Rosus are giving up more of themselves than they intended.
Welcome to Wonderful World of Darklords. I'm Tom.
I'm Rachel.
And we're discussing how to convert Disney movies to Ravenloft domains of dread, because otherwise we'll have watched Wish for no reason.
Along the way, we'll look at the Dark Lord, the domain itself, and some plot hooks and adaptation ideas to integrate the setting into your own campaign.
Today's episode, Wish.
Hoo boy.
Hoo boy. Okay, let's upfront this.
Yeah.
Neither of us were huge fans of this movie.
That's putting it mildly.
I'm trying to be nice, honey.
Listeners, you hopefully by now, you know that we try to be positive.
Yes. General life philosophy.
Yes. I was ribbing Tom about Tron, but I get why people love Tron. We try very hard to not be haters, because if you like something that nobody else likes and you hear people taking yet another dump on it, that's no fun. But boy, howdy, this movie.
Up fronting, opening with this, neither of us particularly cared for this movie. If you love this movie or even just think it's great for you. God bless. I wish I liked this movie. That would be my wish that I would give Magnifico. I wish that I liked the movie Wish.
Please do tell us what you liked about the movie, because we liking things is better than not liking things.
Is better than not liking things.
And I will never like these song lyrics. But I find other things to like about this movie, and I want you to help us. Help us.
Up front, we're going to be pretty negative about the movie as the episode goes on.
Yeah.
We're doing this because we believe that in the bones of what we both think is a kind of unsuccessful movie, there is a very interesting Ravenloft domain.
Yes.
Like, we're not just doing this because we think it'll be popular, because that's not matching the box office or merchandise sales. That would be a bad idea for us to be like, oh boy, this is going to really go viral, our Wish domain. But so we think there is a good Ravenloft domain here.
Yeah.
So hopefully if you liked Wish, we won't be too mean. You may want to, if you want to turn it off now, it's completely understand.
Yeah.
If, like most of America, you didn't particularly care for Wish either, then hopefully stick with us, and we can explain why we wanted to do this anyway, because we do think it's got the bones of a great Ravenloft domain.
We actually had back in December, one of our listeners, Giant Hair, hello, actually emailed us and said that he had seen Wish as an in-flight movie, and he actually shared the same sentiments. I think he liked it better than we did. He gave it a 3 out of 5, which we would not do. But he had the same kind of take of, this is not a great movie, but boy howdy, there's a Ravenloft domain in here. So, hello, here it is.
Here it is, we did it.
Within a year of you emailing us, so better late than never.
So, let's talk about what we think is the very interesting, very compelling Ravenloft domain inside this movie, and we'll start with the thing that grabbed our attention as a potential Ravenloft domain, even before the movie came out. Just watching the trailer, let's talk about our Dark Lord for this domain, a section we like to call
the Lord. The Lord. The people of Rosus idolize their wizard king, Magnifico. I could not travel more than a block without encountering a mosaic, tapestry, or baked good bearing his face. However, unlike some other domains, it does not seem as if Magnifico is forcing his image on an unwilling populace. The people genuinely adore him and freely choose to make him the focus of their creative endeavors. I like to believe that even before touring the other domains, I would have found this behavior suspicious. According to the locals, Magnifico suffered some unspecified tragedy in his youth that led to the destruction of his home. Seeing his own hopes and dreams in shambles while the ambitions of evil men came to fruition, Magnifico realized the power of wishes. A futile wish could bring nothing but despair to the one who held it, while a cruel and self-serving one could likewise bring only despair to those caught in its wake. Magnifico resolved to study the arcane arts and to found a new kingdom based on 3 principles: that the worthy would see their wishes come true, that the wicked would never inflict their wishes on others, and that no one would be tormented by the poisoned promise of an impossible dream. Today, Roses throws its doors open to all who are willing to entrust their wishes to Magnifico. The resulting populace is complacent, unimaginative, and thoroughly dependent on their ruler, but they claim this is the price they chose to pay, and that they would happily pay it again to be freed from the burden of hope.
So, we watched the trailer. And this podcast being a thing we do, it means whenever we take in Disney content, we always kind of have our podcaster goggles on. And both of us had the same reaction of, oh man, this looks like it's going to be an incredible domain. I hope this movie's good.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be an incredible domain. And most of that was centered around stuff in the trailer with our Dark Lord, King Magnifico.
Yes, because you are going to be hearing the line, I decide what everyone deserves again. Because, man, that was the moment we were like, we have another Dark Lord. Oh,
absolutely, I think Chris Pine's performance is one of the highlights of the movie. Like, just is a really, really good villain performance.
He is clearly having the time of his life.
This might be just one of those things where the villain kind of becomes a thing in the future. I could see that happening, even if the movie kind of falls to the wayside. Sort of general Disney hive mind, whatever. So, if you are listening to this, there is a chance you know who King Magnifico is, though.
Yeah.
Especially now it's on Disney Plus. Much higher chance than when it was only in theaters.
We don't usually deliberately plan things for Friday the 13th. We decided to plan Wish for Friday the 13th because it is a very unfortunate movie.
It is extremely unfortunate.
And the good news is, if you watched it in preparation for our podcast, you don't need to be afraid of Friday the 13th because the worst thing that can happen to you has already happened. So,
here you are. So, you might not know what a Dark Lord is. So, Rachel, what is a Dark Lord?
Well, a Dark Lord is an evil being who commits some kind of act of ultimate darkness that causes the dark powers to say, why, hello, new friend, we want to play with you forever. And so they pluck that evil being up and they place them in a domain which is a special hell tailor-made just for them. There are some really great Dark Lords. There are some Dark Lords who just kind of cackle and do evil for the sake of evil and have no discernible motivation. So we are going to discuss what separates the Strahd von Zaroviches and Magnificos in the beginning of the movie from the Inza Kolvoviches and Magnificos in the second half of the movie.
Cackling and shooting green lightning.
So the first quality is that act of ultimate darkness. They don't just become a Dark Lord by attrition. There's some specific evil thing that they do that draws the Dark Power's attention. And in Strahd's case, it was killing his brother because he wanted to get with his brother's fiancée. Our second quality is what they call in Fenrison's Guide to Ravenloft the Torment. Because we're a Disney podcast, we call it they got what they wanted, they lost what they had. In Strahd's case, it's congratulations, your brother's out of the way, you have eternal youth, so you're not too old for Tatiana, but you are too Strahd for Tatiana, and you always will be.
This is the thanks you get?
This is the thanks you get.
Doo-doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo.
He lets
Peruvians live for free. Doesn't even. I'm sorry, we're gonna make fun of this movie a lot.
So this means there are no taxes in Rosas?
I guess,
that would be the equivalent of
charges them rent.
Oh, anyway, our third quality is an element of tragedy or relatability. They're not just evil for the sake of being evil, unlike Inza Kolpovich, who, if you're wondering, was the Dark Lord of Sithicus.
Oh, that lady.
Yeah. Her torment was that good people existed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And she was trying to corrupt everyone to be evil like her, and good people existed, and that was just an ice pick in her brain.
It's very, you thought you had another couple days, but then you get the call. The draft is actually due in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Evil. What's the opposite of evil? Good. She's evil. So, good. That's to torment. She can't handle it.
If you're 5e only and you're like, what the heck is a Sithicus? If you've heard stuff about Lord Soth having once been a Dark Lord, that was his domain, but the dark powers are not as powerful as intellectual property layers.
Changing.
So.
IP changing hands.
But anyway, so Strahd does have an element of tragedy and relatability, unlike Enzo Kolpovich, which is unrequited love sucks.
Yes.
It really sucks to look at this person who you're into and say, this is the thanks I get.
Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do.
And then our final element is that the domain reflects the Dark Lord into their curse in some way. Strahd is the Dark Lord of Spooky Vampire Land. He is not the Lord of Spooky Shadowland filled with elves, which is what Sithicus was.
Yes.
And it also reflects his curse, which is that loneliness. It's a boring mud slump. There's no one to be intellectually equal to him. Even if he wanted to get over Tityanna, there's no one to get over her with.
So, those things for Magnifico. Once again, hearing those things, you're probably like, oh, I'm guessing what they're doing with Magnifico. And so first we have the Ultimate Darkness, or that origin story event, and this also kind of lets us get into our, version, our sort of AU of Wish that goes into Ravenloft. So, we are basically having the status quo of our domain be about an hour into the movie, with a couple of tweaks. So, what we're doing... So we'll talk about why we made some of these choices in a little bit, and we talk about sort of what kind of stories we see playing out in this domain. So what we're imagining is, first off, it's basically like the movie. It's Rosas. Anyone is welcome. It's this place of great prosperity, of great happiness. It's this place that has reputation to be kind of a refuge for people who lose their homes, who are troubled by war, or violence, or conflict.
Ravenloft,
that's funny, right? It's kind of like we did with Encanto, of you have this great refuge for people seeking a peaceful life. But if you're an adult and you go there, you have to be a citizen, to sort of take the loyalty oath. You have to give your wish to Magnifico. And one of the problems with this movie, and that's a phrase you'll hear again, the good drinking game phrase, actually, I think, is that...
Incidentally, this is a regular episode, not an episode of Book Club of Dread, but if you can hear ice clinking, it is because, much like with Book Club of Dread, we're not doing this sober. So we have our Malibu sunsets.
Not thematic at all.
No, not thematic at all,
but delicious. So, in the movie, the concept of your wish is really, really, really important. Not just for the plot, but for kind of the heart of the story, like the emotional core of the story, what this story wants to be about in living in the world is really wrapped up in this idea of your wish.
It's the most beautiful part of yourself.
But it's also kind of muddled and doesn't really, I was really kind of lost in some of the making of stuff, which I watched making of stuff for this episode. You're welcome. This is the thanks I get. I watched an hour, 20 minutes of making of features. Like and subscribe.
I'm just picturing you now when this drops, like looking at our stats, seeing mediocre numbers.
This is the thanks I get. So in the making of stuff, they even end, it's kind of cute, they have a bunch of Disney animators, employees, saying, what is their wish? And that's a great example of why this kind of doesn't work. Because some of them are like, I wish to fly. And others are like, I wish to work at Disney. So I got it. And others are like, I wish for my family to have a happy life. And what is the thing that's all of those? And we kind of have an advantage here because we sort of have to nail it down. If we want to give it mechanics, we have to nail it down. So what we settled on is a couple of things, and we figure the easiest, simplest mechanical thing, and one that I think gives our version of your wish a lot more clarity and simplicity, is the idea that your wish is your bond. That when you give your wish to Magnifico, on the great character sheet in the sky, your bond becomes blank. That your bond is the thing outside of yourself that matters the most to you and now doesn't matter to you anymore. And you can still have other things that matter to you, but that thing that was the most important thing. doesn't matter to you anymore.
Because kind of the idea of whatever your wish is, you want it because of your bond. It's like that incredibly useful piece of advice that they had for designing a Dark Lord in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, of the don't have the bonds be to power, because power isn't a bond, power is the thing that lets you achieve your bonds.
Yes.
And that's kind of ultimately their wishes are for getting their bond, or for, this thing that matters so much to them.
And that when you have your wish taken, we're taking a little bit from the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, you can't get inspiration. I don't think that's going to come up, because the PCs are obviously not going to do this, but just mechanically as a point, as a way for the language of mechanics, the language of Dungeons and Dragons, to express that kind of emptiness and hollowness that comes from having your wish taken, that you cannot get inspiration. And we see that in the movie, which I wish they'd developed it more, and we'll circle back to that. You have the one sleepy friend, Simon, I think, 'cause it's really like Disney's Descendants level dumb name. Dumb alliterative name stuff.
Yeah.
And the idea that, now he's boring. Now he's tired all the time. Like, he used to be a lot more interesting and fun. Or when he does take the wish out of people moving to Rosas, they do get this sort of like a kind of lost look on their faces as the wish goes out of them. And then everyone starts cheering.
Everyone else is cheering for them. They're looking around like, yay.
So in our story, Asha she doesn't have the confrontation with him. That's our big first divergent point. She is his apprentice, because I think that's a really interesting dramatic situation. She's been his apprentice for a little while. Time is fuzzy in Ravenloft. But she was apprentice for a while, maybe several months, maybe even a year. And she discovered his true nature slowly. So, I get with a movie, you're on an accelerated timeline. Wish takes place over the course of 48 hours, I think.
Something like that.
But that's a movie, yeah. That's how movies work. But with us, it's a much slower. She becomes his apprentice. She slowly learns his true nature. And she's determined to, like in the movie, get the wishes back to the people he's not planning to grant. And maybe even full on overthrow him or stop other people from giving their wishes to him. So she knows she needs magical power to do this. And this is all you. It's brilliant.
So... Since the idea is that she doesn't really have power of her own, it's all coming from the star, and there is a perfect D&D class for that. She is a celestial warlock. So something happens that causes her to, she sees the star, she makes a wish on the star hears her, whatever celestial being is up there, or the power of the stars themselves, or whatever it is, hears her, and grants her wish to be able to have this power to help people, and makes a warlock pact with her, and Magnifico can feel this burst of power of there's this magic that suddenly has burst up that he has no control over, and he freaks out.
Just like the movie, the star gives her the wand, the star gives her magic. And it's something a lot more dramatic than just, there's light. Oh, no. But let me really overreact to that. But no, that he can, detect magic and detect that suddenly there is this powerful arcane force in his kingdom that he did not bring and has no control over. So that brings us to where we maybe thought we were going with this. As an active ultimate darkness, which I remind you is this part of this thing we're on, he can't find it, he freaks out, and he uses the dark book. So that is our actual darkness. When he uses the dark book, that is when the kingdom is brought into Ravenloft. It's such a useful, specific moment of him doing a thing he knew was wrong. For the purpose of preserving his power. Because there's this threat to his power. And he knows this is wrong, and he knows this is a bad idea, and he's told his wife, this is a terrible thing, I'm just holding on to this book to kind of keep it out of everyone else's hands. But he does it anyway, and that's such a, clear act of ultimate darkness. Even, in the movie, this is supposed to be his ultimate villain origin act.
And it's it's not just the using dark magic in and of itself, because, that otherwise every black robe wizard on Kree would end up as a domain lord. But is that this was a line that he was not going to cross, and then he went and crossed it.
And then they're in Ravenloft now, and this has given us this, deeper darkness and evil that we see progressing in the movie. Number one, we have the using wishes for power.
We'll get into how that works mechanically in a bit.
But he discovers he can take wishes and he can basically eat them and get a lot of magical power. And the second is he is granting wishes like we see with Simon, but like we see with Simon, it's in a more sinister way. That now when he grants you wishes, he doesn't just like restore your bond to you and then use magic to kind of grant that bond. He actually rewrites your bond. And so he gives you, it gives him this kind of magical influence. So I actually really like that part.
Yeah, that part
where
was cool.
Simon wished to be the bravest and truest knight in the kingdom, and he kind of brainwashed him and made him like a glowing green-eyed puppet. So now that he like gives you this bond back, but it's been like it can't be completely just turned around. We're talking about examples like if your wish was like I want to be like a great father, like we see the one wish, the guy like hugging his kids. It can't be like I want to set my children on fire. I want to be the worst father.
I will sacrifice my children to Magnifico.
But it would be like, I want to be a great father by keeping my children safe, by making sure our kingdom is strong, and like just the granting of the wish, whatever you believe your wish is now, revolves around obeying and supporting and serving Magnifico.
Yeah.
Also, we're imagining I said we're kind of halfway through the movie, so he's like getting darker, but we're not in full-on like cackling super villainy. I'm going to blot out the sun and make green glowing hands grab all of you and make you back. Like we're not there yet.
What is his end game? Anyway.
Yeah.
Because he is very interesting in the first half of the movie.
Yes.
He's such a good... You see why people think he's the good guy.
Yeah.
But even from the beginning, he is not the good guy.
Yeah,
and
a good character.
He's a good, and that is the villain that we want as our Dark Lord, is Magnifico in the first half, but just a little worse.
And so speaking of Magnifico in the first half and the really interesting things in the character, then we have the torment, or he got what he wanted, he lost what he had. He wants everyone, this is the got what he wanted, he wants everyone to be totally loyal and totally dependent on him. He's sort of the Sun King. He is the grantor of all. He is the star that they orbit. And the thing that means is they're totally dependent on him.
Yeah.
He is the source of everything. He is the star they orbit. So everyone goes to him for everything. Because you get the really interesting bits. Like, once again, we look for those moments in the movie where you feel that wince of sympathy for the villain. And you have when Asha brings her grandfather's wish, and he's like, oh, wow. Normally people wait a couple months or even a year before they start asking me for things. Like that. Like, yes, absolutely. It is not good, is not fun, it's not a happy life that everyone's always asking you to grant their wishes, or everyone's always asking you for things. But you put yourself there.
Yeah.
You made yourself the arbiter of wishes. You made this relationship be everyone's going to be looking to you for your wish because you're the one who took their wish and said, I am the one who can grant this.
You're the one who made it. I decide what everyone deserves,
Yes.
not my committee decides what everyone deserves.
Or there will be like a series of procedures and criteria to decide what everyone deserves. And it means everyone's always bugging you about what they deserve. And then we also have sort of a secondary torment, the eating of the wishes. That there is this part of him that knows it's wrong. You do have the very weirdly love song adjacent song. What was that? What? What? But that he really did think of wishes as this like beautiful, special, magical thing. And he was being very controlling, being like, and this is a quote we'll loop back to, it's, I decide what everyone deserves, or even, people give this to me because they know they can't do it. And there's that sort of part of him is like, I'm protecting these dreams from being shattered.
Like almost the idea of it being a sacred trust. And he, by eating the wishes, if he's eating the wishes of people who are in open rebellion or whatever, that's one thing. But if he's occasionally just going for somebody who he doesn't like all that much and eating their wish for power, he knows that that's not right.
There's part of that rankles him. And then the element of tragic relatability, this is related to that torment that they want to lost they had, which is that it sucks that everyone wants things from him.
Yeah.
That like we can wince in sympathy at that moment. Or even I love when he's saying, hey, there's a traitor, there's a spy, there's something, and everyone's starting to getting panicky and they start just going off about the wishes, and he's kind of like getting frustrated, and I think it's presented in a way we're supposed to be a little sympathetic with his frustration, that he's like trying to do a thing, but everyone keeps asking him about wishes. And then he has like, wishes. Oh, hey, you know what would make me feel better if you did a wish ceremony? Yeah, do a wish ceremony. It's like, that's your answer to everything. Everything that happens, you people are demanding I do a wish ceremony.
Or even the song, this is being called, This Is the Thanks I Get. It's like, I wanted that to be a great song, because I heard that title. And that's just so everyone gets it.
Yes,
You immediately get it.
And the relatability, an element of tragedy and relatability, we all have those moments of, this is the thanks I get. I do all this, and this is the thanks I get. And you all just keep asking for more and more and more, said the parents. This is the thanks we get. We do everything for you. So, finally we have the domain reflecting the Dark Lord's personality or curse. And this is good. This is cool. This is one of the really like 100% credit to this movie. As we said, he is Rosas. He is the sun they all orbit. He is the source of everything. And the domain, more than almost any of our others, literally reflects it.
Yeah.
That everywhere there's portraits, there's statues, there's cookies. Like, everyone that's creating something that we see is creating something about Magnifico.
Oh, wow, they are, yeah.
It's like, yes, making a statue of Magnifico, or a chalk painting of Magnifico, or a cookie of Magnifico. And they even mention this, like, his clothing, his cool sort of white, regal clothing, they want it to reflect the architecture. They want you to know he is Rosas. That this world is just sort of, this domain is kind of his dollhouse. That he has made to be his world, and he wants everyone to just play their parts. And people that don't need him to grant their wishes are going to rebel against him, so he needs them to give him their wishes, to kind of have that control and to be the center of things. Like, literally, it's like, Strahd doesn't wear clothing that looks like Castle. It's sort of modeled on Castle. But literally, he is sort of this domain is his world. And that's kind of the thing, that the heart of his torment and sort of his tragedy and his evil is that he made this world to be his world.
Yeah.
And people keep coming into it.
Yeah.
And he just is not prepared to share that world with other people.
Yeah. And kind of with going along the same lines as the Strahd being in a boring mud slump, is he's turning it into a boring mud slump. He's making everyone boring. He's making everyone dependent. Like, they don't have that drive. They don't have that fire. So again, they're all dependent on him and asking him for everything, which is what he wants, but not really.
Not really. He wants everyone to just live their lives in silent gratitude for him.
Yes.
So Magnifico's stat block, we start with the basic stats. Pretty simple, this one. No weird Ghost of Saltmarsh undead captain people.
Or bugs.
Or bugs.
Column.
Yes. That he is an archmage. That he is a very powerful spellcaster, has a full magical lab, huge magical library. He's the basic stat block of an archmage. But then we have this other powers. And these are, well, not too many of them, because they're basically centered around wishes. That, I've said the word wish so much. That he gives someone his wish. We talked about that. You take the bond. When he does a wish ceremony, he basically gets access to the spell wish to fulfill this, but only for this other person.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't use it for himself, but he can kind of connect their wish with that spell and fulfill it with no, like, monkey's paw, evil genie. No, it's just, like, basically fulfilled in the most reasonable way, happy way possible. Now, in the post-Ravenloft one, he also does that rewriting their bond and also giving him this kind of emotional mind connection. We're thinking basically like a familiar.
Yeah.
That, like, basically everyone whose wishes he's granted now is like his familiar. Because he has this kind of psychic control over Simon as we get into that part of the movie. Then we have, though we said he discovered that eating wishes can give him power, and we're trying to figure out how to quantify that, and this was all you.
Yes. So at first we were thinking that it's like taking a long rest, kind of regaining spell slots, but then when we were rewatching it, it's actually he casts a spell that he wouldn't have been able to cast without the wishes. So we're like, okay, these would be more powerful than that. And also the fact that he has to use 3 at once. Whereas, why would you need 3 long rests at the same time? That doesn't make any sense. So we're doing it that he can cast a spell that's not on his spell list. but he has to eat a wish for every level of the spell. If he wants to cast a 3rd level spell that's not on his spell list, he has to eat 3 wishes.
Like we see in the movie.
Like we see in the movie, exactly. And then if your wish gets eaten, then you can use the rules for the soulless from Curse of Strahd. Just, your bond is gone forever.
Yeah.
You basically have no soul. You get a permanent level of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Is the other way that we're going to be showing that. Because we see the people and they're just so
They're like,
despairing.
yeah.
And their bond is gone. They're never getting inspiration again. And then if you like the kind of cackling green-eyed Magnifico, and, he could be very fun in small doses.
Yes.
Then one optional rule that we have is that for every wish he eats, he gets a temporary derangement for an hour. So again, 3 wishes, he has a temporary derangement for 3 hours.
And this is even a nice, you want the movie in miniature for your adventure. This is a way to do that kind of escalation of baseline when the PCs meet them. He's very charming, very suave, very reasonable, very making a good argument for himself, Magnifico. They're like, oh, this guy clearly thinks he's doing the right thing. Oh, we kind of and then you want cackling green-eyed shooting force lightning. It could be as they're coming into conflict, he eats a bunch of wishes to sort of get power.
Right.
And then they deal with, I'm on all the mirrors now. Now there'll never be stars again. Magnifico. And then finally the power all Dark Lords have, except a couple that we have done for thematic purposes, the closing the borders. This is the plot device power, where they kind of lock you into their domain, so you can't just be like, no, this place is bad, let's leave. Hey, you know what, Barovia's terrible, let's go back to Faerun.
Yeah.
But
no,
nope.
you can't. Not
till you defeat Strahd. Dang it. Not till the boss fight. I bought a mini and everything. So, we try to be clever with these. We try to do something really interesting and thematic and flavorful, but who cares?
Yeah.
Mist. It's mist.
It can be greenish.
Greenish mist, yeah.
The evil magic. Yeah,
It's an island. It's surrounded by sea, and the sea becomes surrounded by a impossible greenish mist.
Yeah,
sure.
Sure.
Whatever.
I'm sorry, guys. We're trying to turn this movie into a good domain, but then we got to the closing the borders section on the outline, and we were just like, no, we're out of good ideas.
Maybe
he doesn't deserve them.
There could be something with he closes the borders, you don't want to leave because blah blah blah. I'm not putting enough effort into that. This is not worth putting the effort of nailing down some kind of changing your desire, closing the borders. It's green mist.
It's green mist,
and you can't leave till you beat Magnifico in a fist fight. The end. So, the final section of the Lord write-up that we're going to be doing. Every episode we have the free domain write-up on DM's Guild in the style of Van Rieken's Guide to Ravenloft. And those Van Rieken's Guide to Ravenloft domain write-ups always give you the role-playing trait, ideal, bond, and flaw. It always gives them as quotes. And so whenever possible, we like to also present those as quotes from our characters. And this was hard, not because... we've had some where it's hard because... there aren't actually that much dialogue. So, with Clue...
Good heavens, Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6. Yeah, Callahan does not have... We went to the trenches on that one. We squeezed every potential drop of dialogue. But no, he talks a lot. The problem here was doing the research because the quote sections of various, quotes page I normally go to are very skimpy.
Because... People don't care enough
to go. A lot of my research for all of this is easy because I can go to these, exhaustive fan write-ups. And giving every detail, every quote, all the ancillary material. Not this. I don't see a lot of that poking around internet stuff for Wish.
And if you'd known that you had to take notes when we were rewatching Wish, then you would have taken notes. But you didn't, and we're not going to rewatch Wish again.
Yeah, no. We don't make enough in monthly Patreon income for that. Also, there have been times, with Tron Legacy, where I will just go and find, the transcript and do a Control F, the character name, and, read through their dialogue that way. I'm not doing that for Wish, guys. See previous comment about our Patreon income. So, this is what we got. And the IMDb quotes page the last one was like some random like that random deer, all caps, here I are. It was like, this is a joke. The IMDb quotes page, people are like joking about how bad this movie is.
Literally that random deer.
Is the speaker.
Yeah, that is not Tom being mean. That's the person who did the page being mean.
All right, so here's what I got.
Okay.
So this is the one that showed up the most. Mm-hmm. That like everything I was searching at wiki quotes, whatever, would always have this one, and it's from the trailer. So I imagine it was put into place before people saw the movie. Imagine a place where wishes come true, where your heart's desire can become a reality. What if I told you the place is within reach? All you have to do is give your wish to me.
Okay.
Right? Also, good lord, every quotes thing had the thing where he's popping the wishes, making really bad Disney. He's like,
oh god,
yeah, like people freaking love that. People were like, "This is slow clap. This is so good."
Oh,
it's
that was terrible. That was terrible.
How about never floating land in the sky? How about Neverland?
Pop into this
nanny for your kids. Ugh. Yeah, just yeah. People love that one.
Why?
Okay, well, if you're one of those people, it's in the episode for you. So, second quote. And once again, there's something here. Mm-hmm. People come here because they know they can't make their own dreams come true. The journey's too hard. It's too unfair. They give their wishes to me willingly, and I make it so they forget their worries. That could be a role-playing trait.
I like that.
Because that even is, he's kind of, we're always like, what is the quote that's going to help you role-play this character interacting with the PCs? And that's basically like that with Asha. Mm-hmm. Like, Asha's questioning this system, and he's defending himself. And that is a scene that a lot of PC groups are going to fall into.
Yeah.
They ask him, well, wait, so you're the one then? And he like, presents his case. So, potentially the trait.
Even, because Chris Pine does a great job in this movie.
Yeah.
I remember the whole, they give the wishes to me willingly. And he's getting kind of snappish.
Yeah. He's really good. Of course, I decide what everyone deserves.
That is either the ideal or the flaw. Mm-hmm. That's got to be something.
Yeah. Like, we watched the trailer. Mm-hmm. And we got to that part, and we both, like, sat up. We're like, oh, man, Darklord.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
We already have one of our value statements from the trailer. I decide what everyone deserves.
Yeah.
A king must be prepared to do anything to protect his kingdom.
That sounds like a Bond.
That seems very Bond, yeah.
We'll see if anything else comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Well.
Most people wait a few months, even a year, before they start asking me for things. Okay, good lord. Everything else I have is the lyrics from this is the thing.
Okay.
I didn't want to do this. I swore I'd never do this, but I'm hypnotized by these pages flip because I refuse to have my power stripped.
Okay.
That could be a flaw or a Bond. Mm-hmm. That's even the specifically like, this is about my power.
Mm-hmm. But as we just said, power is about...
Yes.
Power is about holding on to bonds, not a bond in and of itself. So... Mm-hmm.
I'm passionate. I'm not petulant. Somebody praise me for my benevolence.
You know that I've been pulling for that one for flaw.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah, listeners, we were rewatching and we got to This Is the Thanks I Get. We got to that line, and I was like, that is such a good flaw.
Yes.
That is such
Somebody
a good flaw.
praise my benevolence.
Look, Tom, I know you're taking point on Magnifico. Please let this be on there. I want this to be his flaw.
And I want to... I give and give and give and give. You'd think they'd all be content. And all I really want is just a little respect. And this is the thanks I get. Right. What if, like, what this might be crazy, but what about, like, same thing, what about Bond for that?
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Because it is that, the very complicated relationship with the kingdom, that I give and give and give and give, and...
But like,
you think they'd all be content, and all I want is a little respect. This is the thanks I get.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. We have the role-playing trait, the ideal Bond and flaw. So, that is our discussion of King Magnifico, in both of our opinions, best part of the movie. Mm-hmm. And now we will shift into a much less best part of the movie, but one that provides some interesting story possibilities. We'll talk about the kingdom that he will do anything to protect as their king, in a section we like to call...
The Land. The Land. The physical and spiritual heart of Rosas is the amphitheater that hosts its wish ceremonies. Every month, Magnifico grants a wish to a single citizen of Rosas, chosen based on the merits of both the wish itself and the one who made it. As far as the merits of the wish are concerned, Magnifico grants only those which have no chance of causing harm either to him or to his kingdom. A wish that is selfish, destructive, or simply open-ended has no hope of coming to pass. Such potentially treasonous wishes were more of a concern in bygone days, when anyone could hope that their wish would be granted if Magnifico deemed it appropriate. Today, however, it seems unlikely that he would ever choose anyone with designs against Rosas for the honor of a wish ceremony. It is a rare ceremony indeed that does not feature someone who has somehow distinguished themselves in service to the king. Whispers of unrest, rebellion, and dark magic have led Magnifico to declare that he will grant the wishes of anyone who assists him in stamping out treason. Even in months when the king grants a wish from someone other than an informant, it is invariably a personal favorite who has proven their trustworthiness. It is easy to distinguish those who have had their wishes granted from those who have not. They have a passion and vitality that is lacking in their docile brethren. This passion is almost inevitably channeled into fanatical loyalty to their king. While this could be explained by simple gratitude, a cynical person might point out that Magnifico has a vested interest in guaranteeing the loyalty of those whose wishes he grants, as he can no longer dangle that particular carrot before them. It also seems that any wizard with the power to extract one's hopes and dreams would have the power to mold them into something advantageous to him. Of course, it may simply be an exaggerated version of the populace's general infatuation with him. While Magnifico paints a dire picture of traitors lurking around every corner, I found that most of the people of Rosas were eager to help flush them out, particularly because these traitors had discovered forbidden magic that allowed them to destroy some of the wishes in Magnifico's keeping, turning the people they belonged to into broken shells who rarely survived more than a few months. It struck me that the rebels must have been wildly incompetent, for they always seemed to crush the hearts and wills of those who were less than useful to Magnifico, rather than those of his more effective cronies. And surely it was a coincidence that immediately after wishes were destroyed, Magnifico would often perform some mighty magical feat that he had never managed before and could not repeat afterward.
Now, it's very clear that Wish is trying to evoke your classic Disney fairy tale movies in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. You know, it's got your Disney villains, got your Disney villain song, very useful for us. It's got your sort of princess heroine. And one of the ways that's less useful for us is that it evokes with the super vague and undefined setting.
Yes.
This is something, if you've listened to previous episodes, which you should, we've struggled with a couple of these older movies, is the settings are so just the sort of painted backdrop for the fairy tale action to happen.
It's the city of Rosas, where your wanting becomes wishing, whatever the that means.
Coming in hot, folks. Coming in hot. So, what we do have is we have the city of Rosas. It's an island kingdom. It's basically a city-state. There's one major, part of the island. There's one major city. And that seems to be where most of the people live. Most of, the stuff happens. The town's really centered around the city, around the capital. But then we do have a couple of these small, clusters of dwellings. So once again, the exhaustive analysis we have done of this very not great movie. You have Asha's house isn't just this little cabin in the woods. When she goes outside, there's a bunch of other cabins around it. It's clearly a little neighborhood, basically.
Yeah.
But she can then wander into the capital while singing Wish. So it's not this is her hour-long commute. You know, this is pretty... She kind of moves back and forth pretty easily. I think we get the impression this is very much close suburbs of Rosas City. We know that politically, Magnifico rules over it. It has this great reputation as being a refuge, a place of refuge, a homeland. It's open to anyone as long as they come and give up their wish. If they're an adult, they have to give up their wish. If they're under 18, they have to give up their wish on their 18th birthday. And then we do know there is this forest, a pretty big chunk of forest. And then we also know there's a couple of tiny small islands or islets. Or I kept saying islet. I don't know why. It drove me bonkers. It's stuff. The word islet is so specific and noticeable. Look, that islet. Let's get to the islet. All right, you stay here on the islet.
Maybe they were planning on pulling a shoelace through it at some point. It simultaneously functions as an island and keeps your boots in place.
So, we don't have much to build with there. Presumably there's, like, fishing and trade. It's definitely, like, it does have a location, which is the kind of North Mediterranean. They were kind of imagining it as off the Iberian Peninsula, kind of off the coast of Spain. And that's reflected in kind of the architecture and the styling. So that's at least something to work with. And that, you get the impression it's a pretty bustling, like we see ships coming in, coming out. Get the impression it's a pretty bustling harbor.
It makes sense, because if you get your wish granted to, like, make the most beautiful dresses in all the land, then suddenly dresses are going to become a key export. Like, if he's granting wishes that are going to be bolstering the Rose's economy, then there's going to be some fantabulous exports coming out of there. Yeah.
So presumably there's trade, presumably there's fishing. Like, that makes sense that fishing would be a huge thing, just if we're going for kind of a Iberian, Mediterranean culture. Seafood would be a big thing, fish would be a big thing, that'd be part of it too. That's all we got.
Yeah.
As we said, we're coming into sort of, halfway through the movie. We've got this kind of resistance. And we want to really play into this sort of YA dystopia element of the story. So the PCs are coming in, and there is this resistance. And the resistance is led by Asha, though no one knows. It's like a big secret who this sort of traitor is, that this person being hunted. And Asha is still Magnifico's apprentice. So that's sort of the cover identity that gives her access to things. The kind of fun, like, double life she has to lead. That Magnifico knows that the resistance is trying to liberate people. So trying to get people out maybe before they turn 18, get them to leave, or also liberate people's wishes. Like, that's a big thing, is sneaking into Magnifico's lab and liberating people's wishes, or convincing people not to give up their wishes. When we have, like in the movie, we have this whole Magnifico knows they're out there, he knows there's traitors working against him, and he's offered to grant the wishes of anyone that turns them in. So we've got this nice, police state going on, and you even got that, like, great, he's got the stick of, if you help the traitors, I'll never grant your wish, but then he's also got the carrot of immediate wish granting. Yeah.
And then, just like in the movie, he has the, like, if he finds out that somebody's been working with the resistance, then he can eat their wishes and then say Asha did it.
Yes.
No, he doesn't know it's Asha, but he can say the resistance.
The resistance did it, yeah, the traitors, they stole them.
Yes, those monsters.
So, we are going in with the Queen has not yet joined yet. I think that is a really cool point in the story.
She was by far the most interesting character.
Yes, she was.
Well, other than Magnifico. Magnifico was fun.
And the song they do, what's it called?
Knowing What I Know Now?
Knowing What I Know Now, like, that's my favorite song. And I'm not saying it's a great song, or even a good song. It would be like a fun little bee song in a good Disney movie.
Stomp on the cookie.
Freaking cookie.
Dramatically throw it on the floor
and stomp on. Yes.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm in. But it's I think, like, it's my favorite song of this it clears the very low bar of my favorite song in Wish.
The lyrics make basic sense.
Yeah. The lyrics make basic sense. It's kind of musically interesting. It advances the story. It's like a big emotional moment. The stuff with the Queen advances the plot.
The staging's very cool. Like the lighting and everything.
Very, very cool. It's like, hey, this is a song from a movie. It's good. That's fine.
It's almost like a real song.
Yeah. But, like, I got a dramatic moment. She comes in, door opens, she sees them, they all freeze, and then she, like, joins in the song.
Yeah.
And, like, that's such a great character arc for the Queen to have. We want you to be able to insert your PCs into kind of that arc.
Yeah. If you've seen, like, all this stuff circulating around Tumblr with the Magnifico Queen evil power couple, we'll get to that in AUs.
And I think, one thing I found PCs love the, like, sympathetic, well-meaning bad guy who they can flip.
Yes.
The, like, oh, this person really believes the villain's doing the right thing, but they're, like, having some qualms, and they're kind of bothered by what the villain's doing, and then the PCs flip them. Like, that's a fun experience to have. The Queen is a great one. Like, the PCs can really be the one that kind of get her to full-on flip and join the resistance and help Asha. And that lets them do a huge improvement in the status quo.
Yes.
Like, they can't overthrow Magnifico, but they can ride off into the sunset happy, going like, okay, we really helped the resistance. We gave the resistance a major asset.
Like, the Queen is the woman on the inside now.
The Queen is going to be helping them. And so, yeah, job well done, PCs. Let's go. Let's go.
Woo! And then, speaking of believing that they're on the right side, believing they're doing the wrong thing, This is gonna sound like a soapbox tangent that has nothing to do with anything, but I swear it's related. I'll get there. So, Tom mentioned this being kind of a YA dystopia. And that was actually, I think the day after we watched this, when I was stewing over it, going, what went wrong with this movie?
Why did I waste my life? More importantly, why did they waste their lives? Because they did.
They did.
Everybody involved in that movie wasted 2 years of their life.
Yeah. Did not see their kids for however.
Yeah, right.
Anyway. But I realized that the thing with Wish, and the thing that if they had leaned into it, it would have been a much better movie, was that it's not a fairy tale. They're trying to lean into it being this Disney fairy tale, but it's not a fairy tale. It's a YA dystopia.
Yes.
It is 100% a YA dystopia. Because it's you've got your teen heroine, and this society has the ritual that everyone goes through when they reach a certain age. Mm-hmm. And she hasn't gone through it yet, but she's about to. And then she thinks she's living in a utopia, but then she discovers the sinister secret and realizes that it's not a utopia.
Emotions are illegal.
And then she, starts up this resistance and successfully overthrows a tyrant. And that's The Giver. That's the Delirium series by Lauren Oliver. I haven't read Divergent, but from what I'm to understand,
I believe
that's
that is, yes.
Yeah. It's not Hunger Games because Katniss never at any point...
Dystopia straight on,
yeah. But, in any of those three, it is 100% a YA dystopia. And they were trying to make it a fairy tale. And the thing that makes all three of those well, I can't speak for Divergent, but I've read Delirium, and everyone's been in 7th grade before I read The Giver. The thing that makes both of those work is we understand why the dystopia exists. We understand why people chose to enter sameness and have the Giver carry all their memories instead of having them. And if you haven't read the Delirium trilogy, it's the one where love is illegal, and that sounds so ridiculous. That sounds like a parody of a YA dystopia, but it's Lauren Oliver, so she does a great job with it. And you read and you're like, oh, okay, that's why they banned love. I get it. And you don't have that with Wish. You don't have, this is why anyone on Earth would think it was a good idea to give Magnifico their wishes. And we don't see, people who really feel burdened by their wish in some way or other and then give it to them and feel better. So this is a place where you can really make it work and really bring out the horror, because again, dystopias have a huge horror element to them. Otherwise, the status quo wouldn't be bad if it weren't horrific in some way. So this is a place where you can really make it shine, because this is Ravenloft. People are coming to Rosas from Ravenloft. So the wishes that they have are just these horrible things that they know they can never have that are taunting them. Mm-hmm. It might be they wish they could have their family back, but they can't. Their family was eaten by werewolves. It might be they wish that their, mother could be free, but their mother is never going to be free. She is languishing in Ivana's prison, and she's going to languish in Ivana's prison until Ivana decides to poison her, and then that's it. And so they really feel like, I'm never going to get this myself. If this isn't going to happen, I'm happier forgetting about it.
Yeah.
So they give it to Magnifico, and that way either they forget about it, or maybe he'll grant it for them, and maybe they do get reunited with their family, and either way, they win.
Right, yeah.
So we're kind of imagining that, when Magnifico takes the wish, the whole thing is that it's like this magical lobotomy, basically. Mm-hmm. We never really see the before and after in Wish. That's part of the problem. We're told that Simon was different before he gave up his wish, but we never actually see it.
He was less sleepy.
But he's sleepy, so what personality trait did he have? Right. He is Sleepy the Dwarf. So, I don't know, but if you've seen the show Dollhouse, there was a thing where they were, basically this character kind of, gave up her personality for a while, and then when it was restored to her, she still remembered that her daughter was dead, but she wasn't sad about it anymore. It was as though she'd gone through the entire grieving process, and it was just kind of this distant memory. And the same kind of thing here, if they're told about their wish, it doesn't mean anything to them as a distant memory. You tell them, oh yeah, your whole family died, and your wish is that you could be reunited with them. Oh, that's nice. That sounds lovely.
Yeah. This is the thing, you always have we don't remember your wish, and that's a big plot point. Mm-hmm. But it's the well, what if you wrote it down? What if you told somebody? Like, what if... And the point is it's tying into that emotional.
Yes.
It's like, it's not just that you don't remember it. It's like, you might write down, my wish is to be reunited with my dead family. But you don't feel it. It's just words on a page.
Yeah.
It's in your head, not your heart.
And then part of the thing is that it's not just the wish that they're missing, that it's also kind of like a numbing of all of their emotions. Because we get the moment when the mother has her wish crushed, and she says something like, I know this feeling, this is grief. And the implication is that she hasn't felt grief since she was 18. It's just like all of your emotions get numb. They all get the edge taken off. Like, once again, Delirium by Lauren Oliver, that trilogy, it's not just love, it's kind of all the emotions get deadened. If you want an idea of kind of how the people in Roses might look, you could do a lot worse than read the Delirium trilogy.
Or just in general.
It's a good trilogy to read. It's a good trilogy. Oh, Uglies. I forgot about that one. That's another one that follows this pattern. So now I have 3 that I can recommend. The Giver, Uglies, and Delirium.
So, as we've mentioned, there is not much there to go into. This is not one of those things where it can be like, there's a city here and a town here and a thing here, because it's just like your classic Disney movies, very unhelpfully for us. It's kind of the painted set dressing, the backdrop and the props of a couple of sets that they have for the story.
And we don't even get Maleficent or the Heart's Mountains.
So, obviously, there's Magnifico's palace, and that is going to be this real center. We've got, obviously, the magical lab, and it's got a big library. We see, like, shelves of magical books, Asha's reading through. So that's a big, like, draw right there. And that's also where he keeps the wishes. And the nice thing is, almost certainly, whatever story, whatever interaction it ends up having with Magnifico is going to involve that set piece, that place. Because maybe it involves the books, maybe it involves the magical supplies. There's a good chance it involves trying to get some wishes. And then we know he also has a secret evil lab underneath. And that could be a very fun thing for your PCs to stumble onto. If they have proficiency in Arcana, that's the whole, like, whoa, this is real bad, like, magic stuff I'm seeing. This is real bad books and real bad spell ingredients. And we've got the palace, and we've got some resistance people working throughout. So we know that Asha's working as apprentice. We've got Dahlia's kind of in the kitchen, sort of the head baker. There's a lot of using the kind of back and forth of the palace, the equivalent of like the dumbwaiter, the sort of back and forth of the palace to do their missions, to smuggle people, to move supplies, to move information. That's like a cool thing, right?
Yeah.
That like you have a bunch of servants in the resistance using the hustle and bustle of working in this big palace to do their resistance business. And then we've got the amphitheater. That's just, there's not much to say other than it's the amphitheater. They use the square for just general public audiences, but the amphitheater seems to be specifically for wishing ceremonies.
Yeah.
It's kind of all there is. The wishing ceremony is a great set piece. It gets everybody together. The amphitheater's cool, but that's all I have to say. And then one thing we're adding in, and this is from deleted stories, like original older drafts, and that is, originally, Asha was going to be part of this village that was like of people resisting the Magnificos. They were kind of like hiding. They were hiding in the forest. They didn't want to give their wishes to Magnifico. Magnifico was evil right off the bat. You may have seen this deleted scene.
Once again, evil power couple.
Evil power couple, evil tango.
Evil, very thirsty power
Very
couple.
thirsty tango,
wow.
yeah. Would have been a real, sort of much more of a 90s class, like evoking the 90s Disney movies.
Would have been awakening for a lot of people.
Yeah. Just want someone to dip me.
Yes.
And
like evil Gomez and Morticia.
They keep calling it a Hamlet in the deleted scene, which is, once again, a silly emphasis on a silly word. But like 3 times that deleted scene, they say, the Hamlet. You found the Hamlet? We found the Hamlet.
To wish or not to wish.
But anyway, so we're taking from that, and then this resistance has set up this little village, kind of, Robin Hood camp style, this little village in the forest, and that's where they're smuggling people to. Like, some people they can fall and, like, smuggle out, like, especially maybe people that have come there from other places. They could get on, like, boats to go out to other places, but the natives, or, like, a lot of people they can't smuggle out. They have got this kind of refugee center in the forest. And this, ties into in the movie. We have a lot of the, like, searching the forest for Asha, things like that. And these are the people that refused to give their wishes. Maybe they turned 18 and refused to give them. Or the people who got them back. Like the resistance was able to steal some wishes from Magnifico and smuggle them to people. But those people have to leave, right? You have to leave Rosas, or they're going to get their wish retaken.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of all we got with these locations. But I think even that very small, very classic Disney, simple set of locations does give us the spine of an interesting story, which we'll talk about in our next section. Rachel, what do you do with it?
Top off your drinks.
Roger Dodger.
Dread possibilities. Magnifico was more than willing to give me an audience, granting me a guided tour through his palace as he bloviated about his accomplishments. While his self-aggrandizement was tedious, I admit that his magical library was every bit as impressive as promised, and he took clear enjoyment in my expression upon seeing it. I noticed an empty case on one wall, ringed with abjuration runes. When I asked about it, he told me that it had once contained a book of unspeakably dark magic, and that the rebels had breached the case's defenses and stolen it. I suspected that anyone with the power to overcome Magnifico's protective magic would have been able to do far more damage to his regime than destroying a few wishes seemingly at random. When I turned the conversation to the wishes, I expected Magnifico to dismiss me on the spot. They were both the source of his power and the only thing his citizens seemed to care about, and I doubted he would want to discuss them with an outsider. To my surprise, however, he became expansive, waxing poetic about the beauty of the wishes, the power they held, and the danger they represented in the wrong hands. However Magnifico might be managing his people's wishes now, I believe that at some point he truly did see himself as their guardian. That said, the edge of paternalistic smugness in his tone made it clear that they had become nothing more than prizes and trophies. I was not able to actually see the wishes, and Magnifico's defenses were too thorough for me to seek them out independently. On my way out of the palace, I caught sight of Magnifico's apprentice, Asha, peering at his walls as though searching for secret doors. Curious, I used Eldritch Sight just as she turned toward me. We stared at each other, each seeing the other's eyes shining with divination magic. In her case, a glow that looked for all the world like her eyes were microscopic galaxies. Asha was using Eldritch Sight as well. She was not only Magnifico's apprentice wizard, she was a warlock. I opened my mouth to speak to her, but she ran away before I could say anything. While I believe that Magnifico's reports of dark magic are overblown, it seems that he truly does have a rival arcanist beneath his very roof.
I want adventure in the great wide somewhere.
I want it more than I can tell.
So why did you come to this place that has minimal economy or trade or anything like that, other than seems to be an entirely wish-based society?
Well, it actually, I didn't think about it until we were just discussing it and you were mentioning the exports, but there actually could be some interesting trade here if somebody had, a wish that they were granted that happened to be to make the specific thing you wanted to make. Then, or you're accompanying a trade caravan that's on their... that's on its way to Rosas and hasn't left yet. There actually is,
I know he does the whole, I grant the wishes best for Rosas, and then he does, she will grant her wish to make the most beautiful dresses. And I'm like, okay, whatever. That's so, random.
Right.
It's actually, if it's is it going to help our economy? I grant the wishes of the people that'll do things that'll help the economy. That would, raise my estimation of Magnifico as a villain even higher.
Yeah. Just Rosas, it has, the best opera singer in all of Ravenloft. And, in Tamon Lu, that one werefox lady is seething with jealousy. Grognards who've read Children of the Night Werebeasts. You're like, yeah!
all you out there.
But no, barring trade caravans for wish-related merchandise, a big draw here is if you've heard about a place where you can get your wishes granted.
Yeah.
And, the PCs probably are going to say...
They say on this island, the Magic King can grant your wishes. And they'd be like, oh, golly gee, oh boy! Let's go to the Magic Island and get our wishes granted.
Did he give us free candy, too?
Hooray!
But... an NPC can go because they're hoping to get it granted, especially... So, I feel like every campaign has the butt monkey NPC.
Yeah.
Where things happen to them to make your PCs feel sad.
Yeah.
And they're like, we have to help this PC.
This poor little sad sack.
Poor little sad sack. Tom has learned that he can weaponize the sad sack to mobilize me into action at any time. My mom instincts took over even before I had kids, and I was like, no, you're mine now.
Yes, no. Oh, you sad little guy. You little guy.
So if you've got the sad little guy, then the sad little guy, whatever's making them sad, they can be like, I hear Magnifico can make it so that I'm not sad about it anymore. And they go to get their wish granted. And the PCs are like, oh, no, this can't end well, no. So they have to go and save this NPC or, give them their wish back if they've already given it up.
And they're like immediately hooked in. Mm-hmm. They're immediately invested. They have a personal stake. And you even sort of have the like, I told you this was a bad idea, but you didn't listen to me, and I gotta fix your stupid mess. You sad little monkey. You little guy.
Monkey guy.
You sad little guy.
So if you don't have a butt monkey NPC, or if you've pushed that button one too many times and you need to let it rest for a little bit, another possibility is maybe the PCs, instead of escorting a trade caravan, they're going to be escorting people or refugees, like, especially maybe if they've just rescued some refugees from somewhere in a previous session, then the refugees can say, oh, well, thank you so much for saving us. We've heard about this place.
Yeah.
Rosus, where we go and everyone is safe. And then you could even, like, kind of hold back the wish thing and just have it be this very safe place. Mm-hmm. And then they want to go there because they've heard that that's where refugees go, that's where refugees are safe. And then the PCs take them there, and they want to become citizens. The refugees, I mean, not the PCs, presumably. So then the refugees get their wishes granted, and that can be a really powerful setup because you get to see the before and after. You get to see both how much they're hurting because they are coming out of something horrific, whatever it is. But you also get to see just how magically lobotomized they are.
Yes. I think either of these gives you the critical before and after.
Yes. And
this one is a really good transition from a domain to Rosa, from another domain. So especially one of the canon domains where everything's miserable. And you hook up with a group, they're trying to escape, you help them escape, brings them to Rosus, and then the dystopia story happens.
Yeah, like you're bringing in this group of like people, if you're doing 5e Falkovnia, then you're bringing in this group of people who have defected from Vladeska's army, and they have seen horrible zombie things that they will never unsee, and now they've lost their PTSD, but they've lost everything else too. And that could be really interesting to see.
So I think those are the best, but there is one more we thought about if you want to like kind of come at the Wish story sideways.
And that is if you want them to go in and not know anything about what the Wish story is, because let's face it, if you say the domain is called Rosus and the king is called Magnifico, your PCs aren't going to have any idea what's going on because your players haven't seen Wish. No one's seen Wish. So there could be that it's this domain that's ruled by this wizard king, and you want to deliver him magical stuff, or you want to consult his magical library. He has this reputation as being this benevolent wizard king, so you're like, okay, well, obviously, we're not going to go talk to Azalin and ask him for magical information. We're not going to talk to Hazlick, but maybe this guy will help us. And then so you go, you want information. He says, okay, yes, I'll give it to you, but first you need to help me with these traitors. And he tells you this story about these horrible traitors and how much they're hurting his people. The traitors are destroying his people's wishes, and they're just monsters. And yes, of course you'll help stop these horrible traitors from stopping all of these good, kind people in Rosus. And then you discover the evil lab and, all that good stuff.
Yeah. This is like I said, good comment sideways. This is a nice, you don't immediately go in suspicious. You start, if you want the Asha.
Yeah.
If you want the PCs to have the kind of Asha experience of, at least, in the fiction, probably not in real life, because once again, there's a whole lot of red flags. There's a whole, soccer field of red flags here that, but in the fiction, the PCs start out believing he is good, being on his side, and then running into the resistance and discovering the truth and getting that kind of disillusionment and switching of loyalties. And that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we talked about the what brings you there, and then talking about what's bringing you there, we also kind of suggested that there's a core story. And all of these options involve getting mixed in with Magnifico and then finding the dark truth. And maybe it's you get in, you think he's an ally, you think he's good, you start helping him and you find out the dark truth. Maybe it's you kind of see the dark truth firsthand because somebody, an important NPC gets wish lobotomized. Mm-hmm. But either way, you find the dark truth, and that also kind of gets you hooked in with the Resistance, and then you help the Resistance in some way.
Yeah, like, as mentioned before, this is a dystopia story. Your core story is the dystopia story. It's the getting mixed in, disillusionment, joining the Resistance story.
In the domain write-up for DM's Guild that I will do, that is in the Vanderson's Guide to Ravenloft style, I'll include a chart of some, like, plot hooks for helping the Resistance. Mm-hmm. But, like, if you've seen a dystopia story, read a dystopia book, you could imagine the kind of things. Mm-hmm. You help the Resistance in some way. For a one-shot, it could just be kind of you help them with one thing. Like, once again, maybe you just get the wish back of this NPC.
Yeah.
Maybe you convince the refugees that this is wrong. You get their wishes back, and you help them, like, escape. Like, you get out, and then you're back on the road again, sort of Battlestar Galactica style. And then, if you want, you could have one thing, you could have a couple of missions. If you want one big one, you could have, you finally flip the queen. But also, if you want to kind of play out wish, if you want a big mission, if you want like a climax, you could have Asha gets discovered. Because once again, that's a status quo change we can do.
Yeah.
Without the Dark Lord, the Ravenloft stasis. That Asha gets discovered as part of this Resistance. She and her family get locked up. You have to do kind of a double prison break, jailbreak heist. You have to get Asha and her family out. And you have to get their wishes out. You have to get at least her family's wishes out. And that's a fun double heist, and that's a good climax, and that's a good, like, positive change in the status quo, and now sort of that she's the open leader of the Resistance, and then the PCs can live.
Yeah.
That is our sense of how the stories you would play out here. They're all kind of variants of that core YA dystopia Resistance story, but there's a lot of people that like YA dystopias.
Yes.
We could emphasize more on the young. We could emphasize more on the adult. So emphasizing more on the young.
More the giver side of things.
Yes, so you have kids that loved Wish. I'm sorry, that was... No, I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure that God bless you kids. You can get the merchandise very cheaply. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. No, you're not. It was.
I'm sorry if your kids loved Wish, that I denigrated their taste. But, so you have the kids who love Wish. You want to do this Wish story, or you want to do, more realistically, in my opinion, you want to do a YA dystopia story.
Yeah,
you're running a kind of kids group, younger players group, and you're like, ooh, you're doing Disney stuff maybe, and you're like, I get to do a YA dystopia story, but they're going to love it.
Yeah, if you're, running this for, like, tweens or younger teens, like, this is going to be just catnip for them.
So lean more into the material. Like, we made it much darker, so just kind of undo that. You don't need to get the wishes and the people's backstories being super dark, so you don't necessarily have anyone whose entire family was killed by werewolves.
Yeah.
You do need the before and after. So this is kind of, you have more of the dumb, I want to fly. You can't fly, you idiot. That's never going to happen. Your wish is dumb and you're dumb. That you have more unrealistic...
No, honey, if Magnifico hadn't destroyed her wish, maybe she would have been able to fly.
If she'd had the wish, she would have flied. So... soared through the air like a majestic housefly. But they might have, like... You could still touch on that important before and after. If you say, yes, your wish is unrealistic, it's impossible. It's like your wish is to overthrow Strahd. But you play into this kind of lost passion for a better world. The idea of this person has become complacent. Mm-hmm. And both like, yes, you know what? We know, the audience know you're never going to overthrow Strahd permanently. But that it's worth having that wish, even if it's never fulfilled, to guide you, to inspire that passion. That's kind of a way to play into the problem of losing the wish in a way a lot of young people, I think, could understand, especially more on the tween end, is that losing that wish is losing that passion to create a better world. That's wrong. No, we need to restore that passion.
Oh, wow, I just realized, actually, if you did something like that, then it could totally be like a full-on Breakfast Club. When you grow up, your heart dies.
Yes.
So, like, it could absolutely be like, oh my gosh, Disney, you're leaving money on the table with this. Just you turn 18, and that's when you grow up, and that's when you become complacent and give up your passion and start, like, moving through the world like a sheeple.
And even just, like, if they really wanted to lean into this, maybe they were going for this and I just didn't pick it up.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick it up. And if they're going into the whole complacency and the idea that, like, yes, you give up your wish to this sort of, authority, and maybe they'll grant it and maybe they probably won't, but you hope they will.
It's Trad Pub.
Yeah.
Magnifico represents traditional publishing.
But in doing that, you even lose the sort of passion that it was animated by that wish. So, like, yeah, you're never going to actually fly, but it is a passion that drives you to sort of dream of a better world and imagine a better world. And that's why this kind of stuff's really dangerous for Magnifico and why he needs to control wishes. Because people without wishes, people without that sort of dream of a better world are easier to control.
That maybe, like, flight represents curiosity. You want to see what it's up there. Like, it's not about the flying. It's about the, like, going into the sky and seeing what things are like in the sky.
And once again, Disney, this is there. You're welcome. Do that. Take it, put it in a time machine, send it back, make Wish a good movie.
Normally we say go right back to the source material for aging down. With this is one of the few cases where we actually did have to make it a little darker than the source material, because I feel like, anyone who's old enough to be able to handle the numbers of D&D is going to be old enough to handle seeing a before and after. It just has to be a very, like, pie in the sky before and after that's not going to, like, completely break their hearts, like having your entire family killed by werewolves.
But what about if that's the young side of young adult, what about if we're on the adult side of young adult?
Well, if you're on the adult side of young adult, you can have their entire family get killed by werewolves.
Yep.
So, I don't think we're going to have to age up. Future Rachel might come in and make me eat my words. But with that as an example, you can get really heart-wrenching with the wishes. You can get that there's someone who died and they want them back, and you know what? They're never going to come back. Or, we mentioned the having PTSD, and maybe your wish is just so you could forget that it ever happened. We mentioned Dollhouse, and those are both examples from Dollhouse, and they're very adult, very sympathetic, very complicated wishes that could make the campaign more interesting. And then, that could lead to some interesting moral quandaries. With Saba Sabino, you had him saying I don't want this wish back. Why would you tell me I had a beautiful wish if it can never be granted? And maybe listeners, if you enjoyed Wish, that didn't feel hollow to you, but there was so little around what a wish is and what it means that it felt very hollow to both of us. But again, if you had something like, I don't even want to remember this person who died if I can't have them back. I don't want you to even tell me that I had this person in my life. I would rather have a magical lobotomy than be fooling myself if it means not having this pain. Yeah, that could be something that your PCs could understand. That could be something very, interesting and naughty and tricky. And then a thing that got brought up, and once again, we mentioned him in the Pirates of the Caribbean episode, but Ryan George's pitch meeting for Wish. He mentioned what if somebody wished for something bad? We had to have Magnifico kind of straw manning with Saba Sabino's wish.
Right,
maybe this could be bad for roses. But what if you did have someone whose wish was to murder a bunch of people or whatever?
Yeah, a really good arsonist.
Yeah. So, what if you've had terrible people who had a Magnifico lobotomy? Is that okay? Is it all right that they've lost that part of themselves? Is it better this way? Do you have a moral obligation to restore their wish? And then that could also lead to, if there were people like that, then maybe if those bad wishes can help Magnifico in some way, then he can have these, horrible murder goons in his guard. So, if you have somebody who wants to murder a bunch of people, then he, makes their bonds be, I want to murder a bunch of people for Magnifico!
For Magnifico!
And now he's got, you could have some, really awful mid-bosses in there. And then, like, the kid-friendlier version of that, jumping back to the aging down, you could have people who wanted to be bullies. And their wish was to be bigger and stronger and push everyone around, and Magnifico gives them that. So,
Like kind of an evil version of what we see with Simon, where it's not like, I wish to be the bravest, truest knight in the kingdom, but like, I wish to be the biggest and the strongest and to be able to push everyone around.
And everyone has to do what I say.
Everyone has to do what I say, and he makes them like captain of the guard. And can twist the wish like, for Magnifico.
And then, like, if you want to, like, play up the sympathetic, maybe Magnifico has a point thing, again, we talked about the whole... He doesn't want to grant Saba Sabino's wish, because maybe he wants to inspire a mob to destroy Rosas. Maybe at some point before his act of ultimate darkness, he did grant a vaguer wish like that, and it went horribly wrong. Yeah. So you could have that kind of be part of the history, kind of like making him a more interesting and complex character.
Right, and then if the PCs confront him, he can be, well, look, this happened. They have to be like, oh, dang. Now I'm full of distress. And I hate it when the villain makes a point. And then, as we've mentioned, and as much of the internet is aware of, that is interested in this kind of thing, there was originally a version of Wish where Magnifico was evil straight off the back, and it was the evil power couple.
Yes.
And that is something that might be fun to play with.
Yes. Because if you have the evil queen, that could be a really fun plot twist if somehow your players have seen the movie. That
Or the pitch meeting.
Or the pitch meeting, that's true.
Much
more likely.
The pitch meeting.
It probably does have more views.
Yeah, right. I'm going to Google that later.
But if your players are familiar with Wish, then you could have something where the queen is part of the evil power couple, and she's totally on Magnifico's side, but she's doing this good cop role to smoke out rebels. That could be a really fun plot twist to throw at them. That she pretends she's flippable, and then she listens with this very interested face, and then she calls Magnifico in, and they have a tango.
Just revel in their evil.
Yes. And then with the original premise, as Tom mentioned, there was the Hamlet. Had to be a Hamlet.
I found the Hamlet.
And the force of people who reject him, so you could have the more active rebellion going. And then the other thing that was going on in that deleted scene was that he knew from the get-go that all the power he got from wishes, he could get it like 1,000-fold if he ate the star or consumed the star in some way. It wasn't quite clear what he wanted to do. But because it's the source of wishes, that if he were to consume the star, like, he wouldn't even need to consume wishes anymore because it was so powerful. So, if you wanted kind of a more off-the-bat villainy rather than you discover that he's a villain, it looks like a utopia, but it turns out it's a dystopia, that could be something to draw on. And then a little sneak preview for incorporating the older material here with the star. Isolde, like we mentioned with Encanto, we've made a couple comparisons between this movie and the much better movie Encanto through here. But like with Encanto, Isolde is a really interesting mirror to Magnifico here, because Carnival is also giving all of these refugees and people who have lost hope a place to go. And in the older material, Isolde was a celestial Eladrin. And so she could actually be filling the star role. She could be Asha's patron. And if you did that, then you would have this really interesting built-in conflict between these two NPCs of the, Magnifico wants to capture Isolde and, devour her essence and gain this power from her. So that could be kind of a cool, final showdown if you want to do something kind of outside of the box of this movie.
Or even taking that and doing a Celestial Eladrin as Star. And the idea that in the kind of canon story we have, it's just that Asha has this warlock patron, this celestial warlock patron. But if you want to we want it to be kind of like Star, where there's this being that's kind of the MacGuffin of the story, that's empowering the resistance, but is a source of a lot of their strength and power, and Magnifico wants to get that being and take their power for himself, then a Celestial Eladrin hiding in the forest in the Hamlet could be a good choice.
Yes.
So, We've talked about the young and young adult. We've talked about the adult in a young adult. And we've talked about an alternative based on the generally more well-received deleted scenes that have gone around the internet.
Although, to be fair, that's because the deleted scenes could just be the movie that exists in our imagination.
Yes. Let's talk about our parting thoughts in the movie in a section we like to call
Parting Thoughts.
So the first thing we'd like to talk about in our parting thoughts is the genres of horror. This is from Vindicating Guide to Ravenloft. We both agree it's one of the best parts of the book. They go through these different subgenres of horror, talk about their signifiers, talk about what kind of horror they're evoking, give you suggestions for evoking that horror. And so we like to do that as well. There's one I think is real big obvious example.
Mm-hmm. You went first last time. You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Psychological
horror. 100%. I was about to write it in the write-up and then said, no, that would
be...
Presumptuous. But it's everything.
We didn't quite count down in this one, but it was close.
Everything about this is psychological horror. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, there's the idea of of losing your memory, losing a personality. We keep using the term wish lobotomy, that even with the Magnifico, the idea that he goes in and rewrites your bonds, and rewrites your your things to make you this loyal soldier, this loyal true believer of Magnifico. All of the YA dystopia. A lot of your YA dystopia stories are, in so much as they are horrific, they are psychological horrors.
Yes.
I don't know if there's any others. Did you have any other?
The only other possibility I had was maybe folk horror, because it is this is native customs. But I think just doing psychological horror is
I'm fine just with the write-up having psychological horror.
Yeah. I'm fine with that too.
And it's got this folk horror, but folk horror, you get the idea of, first off, it doesn't have any of the traditional signifiers, which are such a huge thing in folk horror. There's not people dancing around in homemade masks on May Day. And also, in folk horror, it tends to be that the community is full on board.
Yes.
Full on board with the practices.
Yeah.
I don't know of any folk horror where it's the person is using the supernatural to brainwash all the people. No, it's generally either the community or a cult within the community is full on board with the practices.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a cool thought. Thought.
And there is an interesting alternate version of this you can do that is a folk horror, but it's not what we're doing.
So I'm cool just horror.
Totally.
Okay. And then let's talk about what kind of campaign
I'm sorry, listeners. I just looked at our outline, and in order to shorthand it, Tom just typed in Psycho. And I just glanced. I just glanced at it, and I didn't see that it was right under genre of horror. And I was like, when did we have Norman Bates coming in this?
So, the next thing I talk about is what kind of game this domain is suited for. You have got some domains obviously Barovia with Curse of Strahd. You've got Darkon that are really made to be these huge level 1 to 10 months if not years of play, many plot hooks, many factions, many NPCs to interact with. Then you have got other domains which are really set up to be a specific single story. So speaking of folk horror, with the new way they do Tempest. It's you don't go there and play level 1 to 10 in Tempest and now we'll explore over here. No, Tempest is really designed, in my opinion.
Yes.
You go in and you do the Tithe games and you do your Midsummer / Wicker Man and you fight the big giant Wicker Man folk monster thing and then you leave.
Yeah.
And that's what it's for. And both of those are fine. Yes. Like a healthy Ravenloft ecosystem
absolutely
needs both of those things. This one, I really think it's not quite a one-shot, but it's that very focused story.
Yes.
There's so little here in the setting. You cannot, in my opinion, run a level 1 to 2 campaign.
No.
Level 1 to 10 campaign.
You could do 1 to 2.
Yes, that's perfect, actually. But you could not do Curse of Magnifico, where it's level 1 to 10 in Rosas, just because there's so little there.
No.
That it's an adventure, it's got a core adventure, it's got a couple side quests, and we mentioned this before, it's you go in, you find out the truth, that's kind of the beginning, that's Act 1 to 2. Act 2 is you help the Resistance on some missions. And then Act 3 is one of those potential climaxes we suggested. Either, like, Asha gets revealed and you help her escape and you help her family's wishes, or you flip the queen. You flip Amaya.
I was about to say it's not as much of a one-shot as Tron, but honestly it's close.
Yeah.
Though, you're helping the resistance, and there's more of the discovery phase. And since it's less weird, I think that, you could kind of stretch out that helping the resistance phase longer. Mm-hmm. But you're not like
demigods on Neurosis. But yeah, we have this climax, and either of those or both of those is a serious positive change in status quo. Mm-hmm. And for a pull quote, turns out Wish has more in common with Tron than you might think. But what if I am running something in the older material, the kind of 2nd edition, 3rd edition unified core, if you only know Ravenloft from 5th edition. In the older material, Ravenloft was much more of a capital S setting.
Yes.
It wasn't like each domain wasn't an isolated mist island. It actually was like a continent and then some islands. And then like Barovia had trade relations and an economy, and it was...
The campaign setting listed the major imports and exports of every domain. And there was like a diplomatic mutual defense treaty among several domains if Falkovnia ever decided to invade.
So if you're running that kind of campaign, Rachel, is there a way to incorporate this domain to say, I want to run, but bizarrely, if you're out there, I'm glad you found our podcast, but if you're like, I want to run Barovia and Darkon and Hasled and Wish.
Yeah.
We got you covered.
We do. All right, so I'm going to try to, take this more slowly than I have for the past several episodes, because I know we got an influx of new listeners with our Pirates episode. I'm sorry we recorded our Tron episode before that happened, otherwise we would have done this then. Yeah. But I know we got an influx of new listeners from our Pirates episode because we got shouted out by Super Geek Mike. Thank you, Super Geek Mike!
This, thank
you. Gosh, thank you. And
that's really wonderful of you.
You were so cool. Wow, thank you. And we had at least a couple listeners who were extremely confused about what was going on in this part. So I will try to... I am a 2E3E grognard, and I know there are fellow 2E3E grognards listening who want to bring this into their games that are run in the older setting, or conversely, just there's a ton of lore in the older material that you can port over and put in your 5e game wholesale without having to bring in all that older stuff.
As a teacher, I can confirm that old teacher sort of saying... If one student has a question, 5 students have that same question. Like, if one student raises their hand, it's almost always 5, 6, maybe 10 students in the classroom are thinking that same question.
Yes.
So we got this question saying, I don't really understand this part of the show.
Why are you suddenly talking about Evan Delisnia in a Pirates of the Caribbean episode?
But I understand from that raised hand that there's a good 5, 6, 10, maybe more people that were having that same question.
Yes.
So here's for you.
So first off, I didn't even have this in our outline, but I want to talk about mechanics really quickly, just to really put a screeching halt on the episode.
really just...
bucket of cold water. That if you are running it with 2E, 3E, Pathfinder, whatever mechanics where there aren't ideals, traits, bonds, and flaws, then the way to represent losing the wish would be a permanent point of charisma drain. And then if the wish gets destroyed, then they take 2d6 charisma damage, and yes, that can kill them. And so, yeah, that would be the way to represent it if you're running this with an older system. If you're using the old lore, then one way to bring... And actually, this is a thing that can apply across the board. For making Magnifico more sympathetic is if you have him be from Ravenloft originally. If he's coming from this background, because all we know about Magnifico is that he lost his home. He said it was greedy thieves. Something happened that caused him to lose his home. And he realized how, the wishes of evil people, when left unchecked, can destroy things. And how having his own wish could just be, this thing that was taunting him. And that can apply to so many domains. And that he could be from so many places and have lost everything to some Dark Lord or some Dark Lord's minions or whatever, and have some real legitimate pain there. And the thing that came to mind first for me, because in the older material, this was always like the domain that all the other domains looked at and said, man, we're better than these guys at least.
Rove is rough, but have you seen Falcovnia?
Have you seen Falcovnia? So in 2E, 3E Falcovnia, it was the man's inhumanity demand domain. I have done stuff there once more or less on a dare because it is too depressing. It's
real
awful.
bleak. It's real bleak.
If you want to run a domain set in 1940s Germany, this is the domain, except it's run by Vlad the Impaler. So it's 1940s Germany with impalements. This is the domain for you.
I'm glad you listened to our podcast because we can help you with that extremely bizarre request.
But if Magnifico was from, like, OG Falcovnia, then you could have it be, that's how his family lost their home. Maybe he lost his entire family along with it. Maybe he was married to the queen at that point, and so this is what she knows he's trying to prevent from happening again. And in OG Falcovnia, they had it be that everyone there had this falcon brand on their forehead, that Vlad Dracov branded them all with this falcon brand to show that he owned them. And if, like...
Depressing!
I hate OG.
We're kidding.
No. I hate OG Falcovnia. And so if you had, like, if you were running the older material and you had PCs who knew this, then you could have it be like Magnifico is, he's casting disguised self, or he's always wearing a hat, or he has, like, a comb over or whatever. And then they get a glimpse of the brand on his forehead,
That's
like, at some point after he's talked about.
It's going to be so
past.
good.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. And they're going to be like, oh, crud. We actually sympathize with
Yeah,
this
right?
guy.
Oh, no!
Oh, no! And then, we mentioned this in the AU, but in the older material, Isolde was a celestial Eladrin, and, whichever version of Carnival you're using, it works as a great foil for Rosas. So if you're using the celestial Eladrin version of Isolde, maybe she's Asha's Warlock patron. If you're using the new version of Isolde, maybe Nepenthe is Asha's Warlock patron, and it's gradually going to, like, be corrupting her and leading her down the wrong path. And if you've done stuff with Carnival in the past, then maybe you can see some of what's happening to Asha, and you're, like, trying to stop that, and you're trying to stop her from being corrupted.
And that could be, like, your nice, like, big climax, big positive change in status quo.
Yeah, that you're like, no, now Asha's going to, like, have a good patron. The end.
Yes, the end.
And then, last thing that's only for OG, like, grognards, before I move over to something that applies to everyone, I promise. I love you too. But the reason that I mentioned Scythicus earlier in the episode, and how Scythicus was the domain that had previously been ruled by Lord Soth, it wasn't just because Inza being evil for the sake of being evil is such a good match for Magnifico in the latter half of the movie, although that was part of it. It's because there actually is some Soth stuff that you can bring in here.
Ooh.
Because
crossover.
The whole thing with Soth, with Lord Soth, if you haven't read the Dragonlance stuff, he's a Death Knight. And in 2E, he was brought into Ravenloft because he was a very popular, very, like, Byronic backstory Dragonlance villain.
Spooky adjacent.
Yeah, spooky Byronic
adjacent villain, yeah.
He's a spooky Byronic cesspool. That's
Perfect
all you
for
need.
it.
Yeah. The reason he stopped being a Dark Lord, like, canonically, it was actually because of IP lawyers.
Yeah.
But canonically, it was because the Dark Powers actually got bored with him. Because he just kind of, like, said, you know what? I'm never going to get what I want. I'm never, like, going to have order and get to be with Kitiara. I'm just going to sit in a corner and brood all day. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to have, like, a fun Easter egg for your grognards in your 5e game or whatever, you could have it be that Magnifico actually took Soth's witch.
That's awesome. That would be amazing.
And then the Dark Powers are like, well, crud.
Wow,
We didn't mean to let that happen.
Dang it.
Now he's boring. But the one thing that I have that is, as promised, a piece of old lore that can be used by current GMs or Grognard GMs, is there was this monster called the Basilisk in the older material. And The Basilisk was like this undead shadow monster that ate dreams.
Interesting.
Yeah, he would like come at you while you were sleeping and he would eat your dreams. So you could do something interesting with having a Basilisk that gets into Rosas and is eating the wishes.
Oh, that could
and
be
Magnifico's
really fun,
like, what the heck? Like, is the Resistance actually getting into the wishes?
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was making that up. But no, he wasn't. It was a Basilisk because Magnifico has an all-you-can-eat buffet for it hanging out in his laboratory.
That could even be a really fun, like your classic, like the heroes have to team up with the villain.
Yes.
So like, we all agree we don't want this monster to eat all these wishes.
Yes.
So this is really annoying. We have to work together. And that's a classic. You've got to love the hero and the villain have to work together to fight a third party.
Avengers team up with Doctor Doom to fight Galactus.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that could be a cool, like, sort of wrench to throw in the PCs versus Magnifico, like, core setup. So now that we've reviewed a number of potential things for the old material.
I can't believe there were that many for Sassafras.
Yeah, right? You're good at this.
Thank you, honey.
We like to finish up with the strengths and challenges of running a game in this domain. Strengths, your players probably haven't seen it. That, first off, really, it is a really nice, as we keep coming back to, dystopia sandbox.
Yes.
You have a limited cast, you have a core conflict, and you can build on that a number of sort of YA dystopia style stories. The idea of giving up your wish, everyone like kind of gets the theme of that being a loss of yourself.
Yeah, like I compared Magnifico to traditional publishing and I was kind of joking, but not really. Like everybody gets this as a like giving up your wish, like having somebody gatekeeping your wish.
Yeah.
That's...
Or even this idea of, like, you lose your wish and you lose this kind of important parts of yourself and you're, like, a lesser person. I don't think it's shown very well.
No.
But the strong enough idea that it works as much as it is. It's kind of impressive it works as well as it does. And so fundamentally this, as it's written in the notes here, Falkovnia without the grimdark miserableism. So you want to do a dystopia, you want to do that kind of story, you want to do a resistance story. This is a way to do that, but in a kind of lighter touch, more abstract, more fairy tale way. They're not branding you as property. They're taking your magic glowing sphere from your heart that represents your desire to fly. So that is, once again, especially with younger players, or you just have older players, but you don't want miserableism, grimdark miserableism, this could be a great way to still do that kind of story. Weaknesses.
Wish sucks.
It's not. Look, anyone that saw this movie and loved it has probably quit listening by now. Because we've been not kind to it. And I'm sorry.
I'm trying to see if on Patreon suddenly we
lose our Patreons, Please don't. And, like, if you're listening, if you're the person unsubscribing, you're still listening, I really admire your grit and stick-to-itness.
Yes.
But this movie presents some challenges in doing it as a right from left domain.
Yes. The world building, I'm going to be more diplomatic than we have written in our notes here. The world building is a weakness. We've done what we can, but it would take more time than we have in our 2-hour-long podcast to fix that. Like, when we were working on this, we just kind of sat there and stared at locations for a very long time. And I think the only other times we did that were Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, and Magnifico is no Maleficent, and Rosas is no Heart's Mountains.
Like, to go off our Snow White, with Snow White, it's such little world building, but it says there's some stuff saying it's set in the Harz Mountains, which are in Germany. So we dug into and kind of built a setting around the Harz Mountains. I could do that with this, with saying, it's in it's like off the coast of the Iberian Peninsula in, like, the North Mediterranean. I'm sorry, I can't be bothered.
Well, I mean, plus the part of the thing is, like, even if you could be bothered, it's like, with the Harz Mountains, our genre of horror for Snow White was dark fantasy. Yeah. And there's so much dark fantasy stuff to mine in the Harz Mountains. There's not really psychological horror to mine in the Iberian Peninsula. Like, if it were, going back to my beautiful psychological horror baby Borka, if it were set in, like, Borgia, Italy.
Right.
We could totally do something with that. But Iberian Peninsula
Yeah.
Any experts in Iberian Peninsula
Please
history,
hit us up,
let us know if there's a ton of psychological horror potential we're missing here.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then with Magnifico, other than the AU with him being Falhovnian, or, whatever horrible domain you want to be his backstory if he's from Ravenloft originally, we've tried not to get too, detailed in building, this big, long, intricate backstory for him. But that means that his backstory motivation, just like in the movie, are very thin. And maybe for you, that's a strength. Maybe you look at this character and you say, oh man, I want to go in and I want to get into why he is the way he is. I want to get into why he thinks that a wish is both the best and most dangerous thing in the world. And if that's you, this is the domain for you.
It's perfect, yeah.
But, man, this movie.
Yeah, but not for us. Neither of us is that person.
Once again, that's not what it says in our notes. I will just leave it at, man.
So if you are that imaginary person that loved Wish and is really mad at us right now, how can they contact us and either explain why they loved Wish or yell at us for being mean to Wish?
Please do tell us why you love Wish if you do. Because, as we've said multiple times on this podcast, it's better to like things than not to like them. And we're never going to love this movie.
Yeah.
But we could at least see intellectually what's lovable about this movie. And that's a better world.
Yes.
So, one way or the other, you can email us at wonderfulworldofdarklords@gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook, Tumblr, or Patreon at Wonderful World of Darklords.
And if you like our very strange gymnastics to get an interesting setting out of this, to adapt this into a thing, a cool kind of YA dystopia style thing, then I have a couple of DM's Guild adventure adapting things. I have some horror movies I've adapted. I just a month ago, in conjunction with our Tron episode, did an adventure basically bringing your PCs into Tron, as weird as that is.
Which the discount link should still be active till the end of this month, so go get it.
Yep, 50% off. And if you like how we considered younger players who might want this kind of fun YA dystopia, then we do have some resources for adapting spooky stuff, doing kind of horror-adjacent, Halloween-adjacent type games for younger players. They're also in DM's Guild. You can go to the write-up. You can just search for more by this author. You can search for Thomas Kohler. Any of those things can point you to those things.
And then, speaking of adapting spooky things for younger people, I have a picture book, Mother Ghost, Nursery Rhymes for Little Monsters. It's 13 classic nursery rhymes rewritten to be about Halloween, which is coming up. So if you have any little people in your life, then
perfect present.
This is the perfect time. And then if you don't have little people in your life, then you can go to my website, www.rachelkohler.com. And I think the appropriate story for this one would be 99 Cent Dreams.
Yeah.
It's available for free online.
Woo!
So 99 Cent Dreams. Go. Check it out. That's my Wish dystopia. A quick little add-in that we forgot to do while recording Wish because we were so happy to almost be done talking about Wish. But we are hopefully later this month in the spirit of back to school.
Yes.
We're going to do our next episode of Book Club of Dread for patrons. And per the three-way tie on the poll, it's going to be Strixhaven Faculty Handbook.
There's going to be a different one for us because we've never done like a non-narrative. Like we've never done like a gaming source book before. In the spirit of back to school, it'll be a new experience and a learning experience. And if you end up liking it, we could do more gaming books.
Yeah. And in this case, it's going to be interesting because Thomas the Virgil is going to be handling pretty much the whole thing because there's nothing I'll be able to tell him about the development of the Strixhaven Faculty Handbook that will surprise him.
Yes.
So,
I'm a bit of an expert.
And speaking of in the spirit of back to school, we were thinking about for our theme cocktail doing like some kind of coffee thing for Fire Jolts, but we usually record late at night after the kids go to bed, and even if we did decaf, that would have just felt weird.
Yeah.
And then somebody on Reddit has...
A little too close to the actual college eat experience to be drinking anything coffee flavored at like 1 in the morning.
Yeah. And then somebody on Reddit came up with some really cool sounding Strixhaven cocktails, but as usual, we like to be able to mocktail it so that, our listeners who don't want to drink for whatever reason can drink along if they so choose. And we had no idea how to mocktail any of these.
This was like bitters and simple syrup and lighting the spoon on fire and like that kind of cocktail.
Multiple flavors of rum.
Yeah. Like, good for you, man. But some of us have work in the morning.
Yeah. So we decided rather than be in the spirit of Strixhaven in particular, we're going to go with the spirit of college in general. We are making jungle juice.
Woo!
So...
college experience, I'm willing to relive at 1 a.m.
Yes. So we're going to link to the recipe in the show notes. There are a whole bunch of different juices involved. I'm not going to recite them all here because you're not going to remember them and neither am I. But we're going to link to the recipe in the show notes. If you want to play along at home, then go ahead and make that. And if you want to do the mocktail version, then combining all those various fruit juices sounds really delicious. We're not adding the chopped fresh fruit to it. But
we have work in the morning. as discussed.
Well, also, our 5-year-old loves strawberries, and if he sees those chopped strawberries, he's going to eat them, and Child Protective Services will be called. So, also, somebody asked on the YouTube, we have not forgotten about Listener's Choice. Spirited Away is still going to happen.
It's on the schedule.
Stay tuned.
It's on our schedule.
All right. Back to a much worse movie than Spirited Away.
Any of the movies we mention or are going to mention in the future. Until next time, when we are covering a movie we both enjoyed quite a lot.
Yes.
So if you don't dread this one if you liked it too. We really love this movie.
Yes. And as mentioned at the end of the Pirates episode, Summer Blockbusters is over, but October there is a shortage of animated spooky Disney movies, so this one is going to be live action. Hey, Matt, you called it on our Discord. You know what it was going to be. So
high five on the astral plane. Until then, thank you for listening, and happy gaming.
Parting thoughts. Whatever good intentions Magnifico may have had upon founding Rosus, he has resorted to exploiting the trust of his people and hoarding their hopes and dreams like a miser. I wish I'd had the opportunity to speak to Asha. I would like to know whether she is working against him for her own selfish ends, as Magnifico suggests, or whether she is attempting to give the people some measure of control over their own destinies. Regardless, I doubt there is any hope for the people Magnifico has mystically neutered, unless they can somehow regain their wishes. It is with some trepidation that I prepare for my next destination, as it has a reputation for being particularly haunted. Holding a death certificate as a mist talisman, I entered the mists, my ears straining for the mansion's signature sounds. I will know I have arrived when hinges creak in doorless chambers, and strange and frightening sounds echo through the halls. That is the time when ghosts are present. Regards, D.
There are many in these realms who long to obtain their heart's desire. The ability to extract that desire and grant it at another time is wholly unique, with near limitless potential. Yet Magnifico squanders it on a frivolous display of magic to subdue an already placid populace. A king leads his people. Magnifico ensures his people are completely dependent upon him, yet complains when he must continue to carry them. A wizard creates and shapes the world around them. Magnifico merely steals this ability from others. He is not worthy of the title wizard, nor king. Perhaps the charlatan nanny would be more appropriate. My little scholar has observed the horrors the common people face on a daily basis. But imagine what they would be like without hope. From peasant to king, hope drives us all. Without it, there is no reason to press on to achieve what some may deem unattainable. At times of great despair, we may view hope as a curse, as nothing more than intrusive thoughts to keep us forever trudging forward, despite the desire to abandon our efforts and rest. Without hope, there is nothing, and that is what Magnifico has achieved in Rosus, a realm as empty as a starless sky. A pity such power would fall into the hands of the incompetent and uncreative.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Aslan. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.
But there's a lot of people that like YA dystopia.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There's a lot of people that like YA dystopias.
Yes.
I said dystopia.
Dystopia, bum bum, beat up, bum bum.